Tell me why it's so important for Blacks to travel.
I think representation in all its forms matters. And I think it's not just important for us to see things to expand our perspective. I think it's important for people to see us. And I think it's important for people to see us authentically. Like, I've hung out with you multiple times. I've seen you in 5 different looks, right? Like, I know you suited and booted. I know you, like, with a fit like you got on right now.
You see me proper, you see me lit.
Right. When we first met, I think I was wearing a hoodie, right? And I think if people only see one version of what we look like from a cultural standpoint, then they start to believe that's the only version that has value.
Luxury Travel News.
My name is Donte Johnson, and you're watching Luxury Travel News.
Donte, where were you born and raised, and how did it shape you?
So I was born and raised in DC, man, and this was like old DC. So grew up in DC in the 80s and 90s, very humble beginnings, and I think it shaped me in a lot of ways. I didn't grow up in anything like the environments that I'm in today. And I think in a lot of ways that perspective, it informs the way that I engage with people, but it also has shaped a lot of what my values have become over the years. And so, to me, I feel like, and we'll get into some of this, I'm sure, everything that we do in this industry, really starts from a foundation of wanting to care for people. And a lot of that for me, it is rooted in what my experience was like growing up. But, DC in the 80s was a chaotic place.
Let's just briefly touch on the environment.
Yeah. So I grew up in the projects. Didn't see a lot of people like me doing things like what we do. And so when you think about what the possibilities are that exist for a kid who's, 5, 6, 7 years old, just starting to figure out what their identity is, sometimes that can be limited by what you're exposed to. And so I had never really spent much time outside the 4 corners of my neighborhood, really until I went to college. And so a lot of what I saw was, really resilient people doing the best they could without the means to really, provide safety, provide, basic needs for the people they cared about, but hardworking folks. But also a lot of the outcomes that we find to be troubling in the world today were present in the community that I grew up in. So violence, substance abuse, as I said, just really a space that's devoid of the resources that a community would need to thrive.
And speaking on some of those instances where there was violence, there was drugs, being that you came from those circumstances and broke through those obstacles, how does that kind of shape the way you think today?
I think it helps me to see possibility differently. It helps me to see value differently. And so there's spaces where, because I've come through so much and because I've seen and been exposed to so much, I can see possibility in spaces where a lot of people, unfortunately, cannot. It helps me to, I think, be a better mentor to people. It helps me to be a better ambassador for the industry, I feel like. I think hospitality as an industry has the opportunity to be transformative in the communities where we do business. But I think in order for us to do that, we have to break through the idea that we're just here for commerce. And so when we talk about running a business without walls and making what it feels like inside the building feel like the best of what it feels like immediately outside the building, we're talking about community building. And I think all of that, the spirit of community building, the spirit of connection, all of that is rooted in the way that I grew up, and in seeing both the troubling outcomes and also the really positive things that were born out of a community that needed to stick together in order to survive.
Excellent. So just to touch on what we want to talk about here in Luxury Travel News, I like to ask successful people this particular question. And you have to be honest.
Always.
Like 100%.
For sure.
If someone were to ask you, who are you? And another person asks, what do? Do you find yourself giving the same answer?
No. I think who most of us are it's so much more than our occupation. If someone asks me what I do, I would say I run a hotel. In fact, most often when someone asks me what I do, I say I work at a hotel. I don't get into the specifics of what I do because I see myself very much as responsible for everything that happens in the building every day, but I am a part of the machine like everybody else. I'm just a part that plays, a larger role in many cases. But who I am goes way deeper than that. And I think, going back to, how my life started, again, I've seen a lot. And I think in some ways it makes you sort of numb. I think in some ways it makes you resilient. But I'm a parent, I'm a son, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a brother, a cousin. I think, the role I play in society goes so much deeper than just, what my occupation is during the day. And I think partly because we've been so intentional about blending the two, and we've been so intentional about leading with love and pouring into communities, those things get blended. And so when I'm out in Atlanta, my new home, when I'm out in Atlanta, people very much see me as an extension of the hotel, but I also think that people see the things that are happening in the hotel as an extension of me. And so it's a very interesting blending of the two things, but I see them as distinctly separate.
Just briefly, I want to touch on, can you speak on how you balance both? Being who you are and, being the person that's there for our loved ones, our community.
Yeah, I think what I do professionally and who I am as a person, although those things are quite blended, I think when people see me in the city, now being Atlanta, my new home, they see me very much as an extension of the hotel. I'm the guy that works at Thompson. But when people are in the hotel, I think they also see a lot of the things that happen at the hotel every day and the way they happen as an extension of me and probably my character as well. Although I think there's a blending of the two, I think that those two things are very distinct. And so what we do here every day certainly reflects a lot of the things that I find to be important and reflects a lot of my values, but they're very different.
And just briefly, I want to touch on, how do you balance both?
Yeah, I think my wife would say I probably balance them poorly at times, but I work really hard at it. I think we see balance as this really linear thing. I spend 50% of my time focused on work and 50% of my time focused on home, and that is balance. But Tuesday could be an 80-20 day, and Wednesday could be a 30-70 day. And I think being in an industry where it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, once the doors of the hotel open for the first time, barring a global pandemic, reasonably they don't close. And so, particularly at a hotel like this, where the spaces are heavily activated, we're in the middle of a Stevie Wonder exhibition right now, there's always something happening. There's a lot of reasons to not be a 9-to-5 leader if what you want to do is align your presence with the maximum impact that you can have on the space. And so I think that requires an investment of time and energy and support, not just from me directly, but also from everybody who's in my immediate orbit. So my family knows when daddy takes a new job, it's going to be 6 months of chaos while he's figuring things out. That means that he might not make it home for dinner. And it's not something that I take lightly. It's something that I'm grateful for, because I think without that support from the ecosystem at home, I'm not able to pour in the way that I do here. And I think the way that I approach this work can be a little heavy, because it's not just a job.
Also having them understand what you do and who you are within the hotel and the community. I'm sure that patience comes into play, and all of that is part of the support. Speaking on family, tell me who in your family or closest friend circle is most proud of you, and what reasons do they give you as why they're so proud?
I would love to say that's my son, and I think sometimes it is, but I also think sometimes it's just table stakes for him. And I think he's a hotel kid now. And so we walk into hotels, and the things that he loves and appreciates about a hotel could be the way the elevator doors look, which is a detail that I would notice professionally, but it wouldn't resonate with me in a way that would make me describe a hotel as a place that I love. I think he has a comprehensive understanding of what I'm responsible for, but we talk quite a bit about what that means every day.
Now,
I'm gonna let this.
yeah, let that sound go.
Yeah, and so I think he. And so when I get home from work every day, and I say this to people in the building as well, every day when I get home, my son's gonna ask me what I did today, and I can't just say I responded to emails and I was in meetings. We have to find a way to make this work more meaningful. And I think in an industry like this, where there's so many people in and out of the building every day, if we can push through the transactional stuff and really start to connect with people, then I think that's when we can do something that's really going to resonate differently. And so I want to say it's my son. I think my dad's probably really proud too. I am not the first generation in my family to start from humble beginnings. Like, that's where we all came from. And I think every generation, is a little further out of it than the generation before them. But he started out with less than me, and worked his way to a point where some of the things that I've been able to do are even possible. And so he says quite often when he's in these types of spaces that these are things that he just would have never even thought about when he was my age. And so I think there's a lot of pride in that for him. The way I even began thinking about working at hotels is I have an aunt who was in the industry. And so when I graduated college with a degree in journalism, but no work experience, no internships, because I worked 3 jobs to pay my way through school, I was living with her. And she gave me 6 months to get myself sorted out. And her advice 3 or 4 months into that, when I had no prospects, was get a job at the front desk of a hotel. You're nice enough, people like you, and you can start from there, move out of my house, get situated. And I think little did she know, 25 years later, I'd still be doing it. And 3 or 4 cities later, 7 GM jobs in, I'd still be in the industry.
And 7 GM jobs because you're great at what you do, not 7 because
Thank you, bro.
You weren't great.
Yeah. So 7 intentional moves.
So speaking on your career and where you are now, could you just tell me like one of your past interests that you can see is connected to what you're doing today?
So I play a lot of chess, and going back to talking about my dad, like there's some foundational things that Dad believes that as a man you just have to have in your toolkit. And there's 3 of us. I have 2 brothers, and he taught us how to play chess all at a very young age. So I might have been 7 when I started playing, and I bring it up because to this day I got 3 games going on in my phone right now. So I'm never not playing chess. And as a business leader, I think the strategic part of what we do is very much chess. And I think even when we talk about outmaneuvering the people that we compete with for business, or outmaneuvering the people that we compete with for talent, all of it's chess every day. And so I'm never not playing chess on my phone, but I'm also never not playing chess in real life.
Tell me why it's so important for Blacks to travel.
I think representation in all its forms matters. And I think it's not just important for us to see things to expand our perspective. I think it's important for people to see us. And I think it's important for people to see us authentically. Like, I've hung out with you multiple times. I've seen you in 5 different looks, right? Like, I know you suited and booted. I know you, with a fit like you got on right now.
You see me proper, you see me lit.
Right. When we first met, I think I was wearing a hoodie, right? And I think if people only see one version of what we look like from a cultural standpoint, then they start to believe that's the only version that has value. And so I think in order for us to truly be represented, we got to be present. You got to show up to win. And so travel is important for us to see, but also important for us to be seen.
Now, in what ways have you seen our community's interest in travel grow?
I think people like you have actually helped to feed into that. It feels like during the pandemic, a lot of people wanted to travel. But I think, building online communities has helped to de-risk that for us. I think for a lot of us, so much of what we see as normal or possible or even interesting is rooted in survival. And I've had trips where I didn't feel fully safe. I've had trips where I felt like if I didn't grow up the way I grew up, I wouldn't feel comfortable here. And a lot of that is because we're not widely accepted everywhere. And so part of changing those outcomes and changing those realities is us showing up in the places despite the fact that we're not 100% made to feel welcome. And I struggle with going back and forth between I can spend my money anywhere, so I'm going to spend it somewhere where it's appreciated, or I'm going to be in the space because I'm entitled to be there. And it could be a coin flip, what I'm on a given day.
Is there one of those experiences that you can touch on that kind of influence maybe some of the decisions that you're even making today?
I think all of the experiences I've had influence the way that I go about what I do professionally. But traveling through Europe, I've traveled in Europe quite a bit. I am often left wondering why it is that we're so infatuated with traveling to some of these places, because I've had experiences that were outright unwelcoming. And, when I travel to other places, when I travel to South America, when I travel to the Caribbean, I'm not treated that way. And I think part of it is also the constant having to wonder if I'm being treated poorly because of who I am, or if somebody's just bad at their job. And it's not a thing that we should have to figure out. At the end of the day, we should be able to go to places and just trust that we'll be taken care of. I've had experiences where I've been denied access to places. I've been told that it's a private event going on tonight, when the concierge at the very nice hotel that I was staying at explained to me very deeply what was going on. And then I called the hotel and the concierge calls the place, and all of a sudden it's not a private event anymore. And so we've had all of those experiences traveling.
With the flex, Donte.
Oh yeah. I mean, again, I'm going to be in the spaces that I'm entitled to be in. And I also think it's important for people in those spaces to understand that you never know who's standing in front of you. And so I've had some of those experiences here, right? You don't have to go to Europe to be treated poorly. That's certainly not the case. And that's not to say that every place in Europe is that. I've had incredible experiences in Europe. We were just talking about Spain as an example. So I think I want it to be less hit or miss for us. And I think in order for it to be less hit or miss, people have to see us in order to value us.
Luxury travel news.
My name is Donte.
Oh, you could do that. Go ahead. Give me.
And you're watching Luxury Travel News.
All right, give me like a DC radio drop.
No, I'm not doing that. Petey Green.
All right.